Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're doing well. I have one of my assistants here, Nick, one of our instructors. He's in our Flower Mound campus, here to help us with this particular video. But the reason why I'm filming in the home studio, you almost never see me film in the home studio these days, it's because we're in late March, and late March is the old Karachi that's going around right now, also known as a Crown Vic. Can't use the word because the video might get struck. So what I want to do is kind of give you some ideas. You know, one of our students had texted and said, hey, what do I do during this whole self-distancing and we're in lockdown right now. Actually, we will be at midnight tonight, meaning that we're, what do they call it? Stay at home? Or
shelter in place.
Shelter in home, shelter in place, meaning you're not supposed to leave your house.
It's like 3 or 4 different terms. So.
Yeah.
So now that you're in your home.
That's a response.
So now that you're sequestered in your home, you still want to help your jiu-jitsu somewhat. You don't want to just kind of do this and then get back in the studio and you have no more stamina. One of the things you want to do anyways, you want to go outside and walk or do some wind sprints or whatever works for you in that. But what can you do inside? The reason why I have Nick on this video is because he also will run our warm-ups in addition to teaching classes, and he is a madman when it comes to exercising. He's got great flexibility, but it's not because he might be naturally flexible, it's because he really works hard at it. And some of you might say, well, you know, look at Nick, he's in great shape and all that, you know, but he may disclose something to you that will make you say, all right, I really don't have any excuses. Anyway, let me turn over to Nick, and he'll go over some scenarios that you could do in a very short amount of time or even a little more extended time period as well. So let me move off to the side.
Hey guys, so one of the typical things we'll do in warm-ups for classes is try to warm up all our different muscle groups, try to loosen things up as much as possible. We don't know what we're necessarily going to be working on during class time. It could be side mounts, it could be mount escapes, any number of different positions. So some of the stuff you may have done in different gyms or whatnot or different schools are going to be fairly commonplace for us. Obviously, standard fare is going to be something like your push-up positions. So I'll kind of vary them. And a lot of times you'll see guys kind of flare out their elbows. We want to try to keep them in. Part of what we do in jiu-jitsu obviously is keeping our elbows in tight here so we can engage our lats. And that's going to come into play with push-ups as well. You want to try to keep your elbows in tight, engage your back muscles, your core, and also tilt your pelvis. You're trying to keep your entire back straight all the way through, not collapsing and starting to do these little warm positions. That's not going to help you very much. You want to stay as engaged as possible, down, all the way up. What you can do if you're going to change positions here is slightly flare out, come out to about 45 degrees with your elbows, and it'll change the different muscle groups in the upper arms that you're going to be working here. If you have issues with shoulders, you may try to avoid this position. I've actually got wrist issues, so I'll modify it, and seemingly this will be a little bit harder. I'll come to my knuckles all the way through. So again, if you have shoulder issues, you may not want to do an exercise like this. Kind of modify it, go by what, say, your doctor or a fitness professional will tell you. That'll be a good option for warming up your upper body. What I also like to do is what we call our judo push-ups. So we'll come up onto our legs, and we're actually trying to drive down, and this will help engage our shoulders, and then we're going to come back up. It's like you're curling your body through.
Can you show that from the side?
Sure. So we start up here, kind of engage with our head pointing down, drive through, and up at the bottom, and come back. It is stressful on the shoulders, so be cautious about doing this sort of stuff. Do it within reason, whatever you can. Modify it if you have to. Do your best, I guess, if you have to go shallow.
Shoulder issue trying to do push-ups?
Yeah.
You know, usually if, you know, so when I what I do is I just point my thumbs forward. Zach actually taught me this. And what I do is I just bring my elbows in.
Keep them tight.
Yeah.
So this may help.
And try to engage the lats.
Right. So this may help, especially if you got shoulder issues. You want to point those thumbs forward. Keep the elbows in tight. And you're using your lats, engaging here to really bring yourself down and all the way up. That may help with shoulder issues as well.
And who exactly came up with that or showed that?
One of our brown belt instructors, Zach, showed that to professor. This professor's got shoulder issues. I've got some here and there as well, elbows, shoulders, occasionally it'll flare up wrists, so I'll try to modify my push-ups so that I can get through them without too much difficulty. One of the next things we like to do, which you'll be familiar with, is your cross-collar chokes. So we'll try to keep our hips engaged, legs up, and I've got my wrists crossed here. I'm not just gonna do what you'll see in traditional places, just pulling downwards. I wanna make sure I'm engaging my lats, so I'm gonna also bring my legs in. So I'm gonna simultaneously bring my knees in, crunch, elbows down, and when I get to the end of the position, I'm actually gonna drive my elbows in. Turn your wrists in, and this will help you bring your elbows in tight. If I leave my wrists out, some of us will have a tendency to do this, which is not gonna be conducive to finishing a choke. You wanna turn in and bring them down, and that helps to engage your lats. You can do a few reps of those, 20, 30, whatever works for you. And then you can transition to what we call side dips. So you're gonna keep your core engaged, your hips are again trying to stay off the ground, and you're just trying to reach below you. And this will help work your obliques as well.
How many sets of those do you do?
We'll typically do one set of about 20 to 30. Depends on how advanced the class is. We'll mix them in because obviously we try not to stop in between exercises. We don't give you too much time to rest. But especially during my warm-ups, I'll intersperse it with some stretches. So the next thing we might work on is a stretch to work on our back. So we'll kind of stay in that same position and we'll bring our arms out in kind of a T position. And we'll slowly take our knees and without lifting up our far shoulder, we'll drop down, stretch, and reach to the other side, stretch. And this will help kind of loosen up that upper body as well so that you can go into more involved positions. And one of my favorites that I'll transition to afterwards is working on our upas, what many other schools will call bridging. And what it entails for us when we're doing our upas, and will help you quite a bit, is making sure our hips come up high. You'll start driving through your heels because that's going to give you the maximum engagement and energy through your glutes. But to get higher, come up onto your toes. And the next stop will be looking up above us at an angle and turning through it. We'll do anywhere from 10 to 20 reps both sides. However, there's a key component that you'll want to throw in that will help you in performing your upas, because you may find that you'll have to change your leg position. So we'll do two versions of it. It'll be a step over, and then there'll be a step under. If you notice my feet, obviously because of the name, stepping over, and I'm exaggerating so you can see it clearly, my far leg steps over. The step under, I clear a little bit of space and my inside leg scoops under and I come through. Typically 10 to 20 each side, so you get anywhere from 20 to 40 reps total. And that's one of the positions that helped me early on when one of my instructors was injured and I had to practice these movements on my own because I didn't have anybody to practice with. So I did essentially shadow movements, and that's a good one to work on as well. One of the other things I like to do, obviously, for stretching purposes, and it took me a while to get used to this and be comfortable with it, is what we call, I don't know if we have a specific name for this technique. It's something I learned during one of our seminars in Hawaii with Professor Fernando. So we'll start kind of on our backs, or you could start sitting in a seated position, right? Trying to prepare to separate from an opponent or engage, whatever you got to do here. And as we drop down, we're going to come up, dig our heel in, use the heel to pull us up, really engage, drive your hips in here. And this will help with flexibility, pushing in. I don't want to get too far from or too close to the camera, right? Because you can't see me. And so as we alternate, so as I come back down, I can alternate switch legs, engage my heel, drive in. The goal is to do this without doing something like this, using our hands to get up. I want to just be able to do it just with my legs. Engage, stretch, being careful to tuck my foot under so that I don't get caught trying to roll over my knee, which would be very unpleasant. Do about 20 reps of that, 30 if you're comfortable with it. Pretty fast. You're gonna feel, and you can hear in my voice, your heart rate starts to pick up doing this. It's a good little exercise. You can also do step throughs afterwards. That's the next logical progression. You may have seen Grandmaster Hicks in some of his videos, where he'll start in this position and he'll reach out and he'll drive through. You can drive through. Wrestlers will kind of do something like this as well. Let's step out. You can intermingle that with push-ups on the way, obviously. Boom, push up, boom, drive through. One of the next favorites, which you can obviously progress from there, is you'll come up, and this will help you in standing up to pass guard. So what it'll look like is, obviously you can mix it in with push-ups, but generally we're starting from here as if I'm in somebody's guard. I'm putting my hands in the armpits, blocking the arms so that they can't choke me. I'm driving up, both feet come up, and I can engage, drive my hips in. I want to come up, put my weight and my drive forward onto the balls of my feet.
How's the balls of your feet look?
Balls of my feet, yeah.
Well,
So
how does
like weight forward, like you're tipping forward. Obviously, you can intersperse now with pigeon poses. That's a good one as well. We'll stretch here, try to drive your hips down and forward. And this is how I like to work on my flexibility as well.
especially since you
Both knees replaced? Yes, indeed. So if you think you can't do something like this, both my knees are metal. So it just takes time and dedication to really working on something like this, because I'll tell you what, flexibility will help quite a bit in Jiu-Jitsu. It certainly helped me, obviously. One of the other options you can do as well for stretching here, typically you'll see in a lot of places to help stretch out the calves, maybe the hamstrings a little bit, is you'll tuck one leg forward, reach across, really engage those toes. Don't leave them slack, because otherwise you're not stretching that calf. You're gonna reach forward, pull the toes forward towards you, try to lean in. And as you get better at this, you can go deeper. Obviously, you may be even able to reach with the opposite hand. I still need to work on that. You can then gravitate into pulling that leg backwards and start to drive forward, stretch on this side, the leg that's tucked under you here. You're gonna stretch glutes and the muscles back here. And then once you finished here, you're gonna walk yourself back and start to engage those hips and stretch out your quads as well, your hip flexors, driving up. And as many of our students know, this is going to be very key. Once we start to engage our hips and understand how that plays with what we do, this is very important to start engaging our hips, really working on that muscle flexibility and engagement. You just switch sides, do the opposite side, obviously. Some of the other exercises that I like to do in working hamstrings is going to be donkey kicks. These are kind of popular on Instagram and other social media types, but all jokes aside, this will help your game quite a bit in terms of using your legs. A lot of us kind of neglect that stuff. So you're going to come into a all fours position, keeping your hips aligned straight to the ground, squared. You're going to just bring your leg up here and you're going to drive upwards. Do about 15 to 20 each side, alternating. You can also work your core here by coming up to your hands. You can extend right arm, left leg, and try to drive in, engage your core. Engage your core. Again, core will come into a big play in a lot of different positions for Jiu-Jitsu. You'll work that as well. And again, it'll look from the top position here, extending out, and just connecting in, but not twisting off to the side. You want to stay square, engaged. That will help quite a bit with core muscles, core engagement. And then one of the other popular ones I like to do, because when we pass guard, when we're trying to stay based, we want to be able to squat as deep as we can and start to engage our muscles here. So it's not just going to be a squat here. Obviously you can do regular squats all day here. You can also do jumping squats if you like, being cautious to drive through your heels, landing, keeping your toes up, so you're using your proper muscle engagement here, and you're going to squeeze at the top. But what I like to also do is come into that squat position as deep as you can, try to keep your upper body up, and you're going to walk out, being sure that your knees don't cave. You want to stay out and engaged here. Engaged, and then come back. Try to do a few sets of these, stay as low as you can in that squat position. That will help quite a bit with mobility as well, helping you work on your base. Beyond that, for our typical warm-ups as well, we'll work knee on belly. That doesn't work obviously without a partner, but what you can do, again, to come back to that hip elevation, is just work with a drive here. Engage up, drive, drive, and then couple that with your upas, of course. Beyond that, good stretches. If you've got a wall or some padding, you can try what we call a couch stretch. Come into a kneeling position, just one leg kneeling. Put your foot, your inside foot up on the wall here, and you're gonna drive down into the stretch. Be careful to do this when you're warmed up. You don't wanna stretch your muscles when they're cold, because it can be unpleasant, you can cause injury. And then just switch sides as you feel comfortable.
And how exactly does it? I'm not quite seeing the stretch.
So, what it ends up doing, we'll do it from this side since my left ankle's screwy, is you're actually engaging your hips down, stretching the quads and that hip flexor. You want to try to make sure that you don't drive your knee over your toes. You want to keep it back, that's fine. And you get to about here. I've got my toes up, that's fine. I can use that to help drive me down, or you can also go onto your instep to help stretch out the quads and that hip flexor. Does that make sense?
Okay, I see it now.
All right.
It just looked like you had your foot next to the wall for a second. I'm like, how's this a stretch? It
Yeah,
just looks like
it kind of, essentially, if you don't have a wall near you, you can also mimic this by just coming in here, pulling my foot up, and just driving myself down and forward into the ground, and this will help stretch out the quad and the hip flexor. You want to try to do that on both sides as much as possible, and just drive in. So I'm a little bit less flexible on this side. Drive in and try to stretch these muscles out. Really work that engagement. The last one that I felt, considering how interconnected everything we do is with the hips and the shoulders, probably by far the most important thing that I found even when teaching my students is working on getting onto my bottom shoulder. And I spent a lot of time simply just sitting here. I'm kind of angled. I'm not necessarily all the way flat on my back, but obviously you could start flat on your back, but I'm always going to keep my head engaged. I'm trying, as I work my escape, to drive my top arm across and suck my bottom shoulder in. You can do that also as a helper and for self-defense purposes by doing what we call the rhino. When I reach out here, I'm bringing my bottom hand in to protect myself. My feet are always staying engaged. You can see my toes are locked in here, and I'm curled up because I can spring much better than if I'm here. No base, no spring. I'm staying tight, I'm reaching, driving with this left shoulder, and I'm sucking my right shoulder under and curling up to protect myself. And also for the purposes of our escapes, this is going to help you quite a bit in getting to the correct position to finish your escapes. This alone, I spent quite a few months just working both sides constantly. And this is something you can do when you're just sitting at home, you're bored out of your mind, you've watched every series you can think of on Netflix. What else can you do? Just sit there the whole time and just work both sides. Work on getting onto the shoulder, sucking it under you, getting used to that motion, because that's going to help you a lot in Jiu-Jitsu. It will work your core like crazy, so be prepared to feel cramping there. Right?
So now let me add one to this that I know Nick cannot do. Well, because of what he told you. So here's the thing, like Nick had mentioned earlier about base is very important, right? So you hop up and you hit into it, right? So one of the things that makes this motion really good is you need to have the legs that can do it. So one of the things that I will do from time to time is I'll do sissy squats. So I used to do them with a weight, and what you would do is you'd have a weight or maybe a plate. You'd hang onto a railing, and you go on the balls of your feet, you kick your knees out and your hips, and you just simply go until your knees touch, and then come up. The goal is to not break your hip, as I say, right? I call this a closed hip, and I call this an open hip. The goal is to keep your hip open the whole time, like this, okay? So this is not easy. But I always say, just to imagine that somebody is pulling you here with your belt, so that when you do go into the position, right, you can pop up here. So it's here and pop up to come. So it looks easy, but it actually isn't.
What other things other than a banister rail that you can use, like a shelf, a counter? Or?
Anything that's stable enough to hold your weight, so if you lose your balance, you can hold it.
So a lot of people don't have the balance, so you just may want to just put your hand against the wall so you can balance, but after you've done this a number of times, it's really not that difficult to balance. But you have to have the ability to do the squats, which are kind of difficult.
Somebody's pulling him on strings, doesn't it?
So now, what is the cheap version?
So one of the things you helped me work on, because I just can't keep my hips engaged. Obviously, I can't sit back on my heels all the way. So for me to be able to really
turn your side so we can see how far you can go.
So that's about it for me.
Yeah.
And funny part is that one of my friends helped me out with the right side by doing something we weren't supposed to do, which is push me backwards. So I broke through some scar tissue here, but as you can see, most people, when you see them in competitions or even in training, they can sit back on their heels. It helps a lot with being able to base and pull away so that guys can't break their posture and guard. I can't quite do that, so I'll sit here and I'll try to engage my hips, which I've worked on, but there's only so long I can do this, which tends to be a lot shorter than most people. So one of the workarounds that we worked on with Professor for me to figure out was to start to angle my body as I'm coming up. So if I'm standing up in base, I'm not just popping up here and standing. I start to angle a lot earlier than most people. So when I pop up here, I get my base, I kind of hold myself here temporarily, right? Good base practice here. And then I start to immediately engage here. And it's easier for me to engage my hips in. And it's harder for my opponent to off base me there. You'll have to work on this, because if you're not used to this position, it's gonna look and feel awkward. And you may feel, obviously, so you can kind of see from the side what my hips are doing. It may feel like you're off base here, but I'm perfectly basing. Now, if I have an opponent there, I'm not just gonna do this and let them push me. I'm actually driving my knee down into them and trying to attack their hips. Now, this is something you'd normally want to practice with somebody else so you can get used to this motion, but this is so you can at least see what I'm doing here. I'm not just bending and twisting, I'm trying to attack his hip. You see how his legs are twisted up. Now, he might be able to push me up a little bit, but I'm weighting myself and connecting to him. It's harder for him to push me away.
It doesn't feel good, by the way. He's actually torquing me this way with his knee coming onto my hip.
So that's a good little practice that you can do when schools are back in with your partners, try to work on passing guard using that. But again, just by myself, I'm coming up here and I'm driving my knee down and engaging my hip. That's a good little practice, and if you do this fast enough, you'll start to lose your breath.
Yeah, you can do it here. Boom, bang.
Yeah, do about 20 reps, 30 reps, build yourself up.
Bang.
It is tiring.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, and these are all exercises that will help you help your jiu-jitsu while you're off. You don't always have to train and roll to get better. Sometimes you might just need to get your body movements correct. And if you can film yourself, just prop your little phone on the selfie camera and just videotape you doing it, and then go back and watch this video and see whether or not it's correct.
Especially push-ups and those little donkey kicks, you see your hips kind of twisting. A good primer for our students, obviously, is we're trying to keep our hips squared and focused in on what we're trying to control on our opponent, when you see your hips tilting one direction or the other, you're losing your connection, your weight distribution on your opponent. You want to see that on film so that you know, hey, I'm screwing it up, because a lot of times when I try to do squared up position with my hips and I engage, I feel like, okay, I feel kind of straight, but I might not necessarily be. It's a good way to at least be able to tell if you're making a mistake there and correct it. You know, what typically happens in many other sports schools, and I came from one, so I know firsthand, is they'll do quick little 10 minutes of warming up. Push-ups, some crunches or sit-ups or triangle exercises, which basically involves you doing this. It's just kind of similar to what we're doing here, but we're using a lot more musculature versus you're just sitting here doing this. They'll maybe run a little bit, and then they'll sit there for about 10-15 minutes, drill something real quick that the instructor shows them. Brief, very brief, and then, hey, everybody roll. And this particular student mentioned that, hey, I wasn't getting a good enough workout, so I liked it, but I need to go to the gym because it's not a good enough workout. And that's why we like to put in a lot of these good warm-ups for our students, partly obviously to improve their conditioning so they can help them with their jiu-jitsu, but there's another main reason that I liked why he insisted on it, and it's that if you can do your escapes, your control positions, etc., when you're completely exhausted, then you can definitely do them when you're rested. If somebody on the street grabs you, throws you to the ground, you can get right out. If you can do this when you're toast and your brain is like scrambled, you can do it any other time. And that's what I appreciated about the way we do our warm-ups and our preparation before we even start drilling.
You know, the thing is, we're not doing anything new. When I did my first jiu-jitsu class in Hawaii at UH, when Grandmaster Helson used to teach there, we'd get there at about 6, I think, and we'd be working out hard till about 6:30 to 6:45 before he'd walk in about 6:30, and he'd walk in during the warm-ups, and at about 6:45 is when we'd start doing the judo, the takedowns. And that's when we go to self-defense, and then we do the ground technique, and then we go train. I mean, class would be about 3 hours. But when I moved to California and I went to Hickson School, it was the same thing. It was we had a long warm-up. So all we're doing here is we're just doing what we were taught. Now, a lot of classes at other schools, they'll run 60-minute classes, you know, on the hour, top of every hour. And when you do only an hour class, there isn't much time to do any kind of warm-up. And with our 1 hour classes, we cut everything in half, because when I teach a class, it's a 2 hour class. And for the 1 hour class, like say what Nick teaches in the morning, he has to cut everything that we do in half. So the warm-up is going to be half the time that would be in my class, and the self-defense and everything is going to be half. So that's how you manage time. But I also want to go over some things for push-ups. So push-ups are a great exercise because it brings in a lot of work for a lot of body parts. But you need to do them right. So Nick had gone over earlier about doing the push-ups. So one thing that I like to do is that when I watch people do push-ups, first thing they'll do is they'll hang their head. And then what they'll do is they'll then touch their head and come back up, right? Now, when you do that, you don't have much range as if you went to here, right? Now, I'm not resting. I can still push off. So hanging your head is one. Another thing they'll do is they'll hang their hip, right? And then they'll just touch here, and then they'll push back up. Both things, hanging your hip or hanging your head, serves to reduce the range at which you're doing a push-up. Mm-hmm. The key to any exercise is to do as much range as you can, and the push-up is no different. So one of the things that you want to do when you're doing a push-up, so if you have shoulder issues like me, right, I don't do this movement very well, so that's why I bring my elbows in and I put my thumbs to up, and I engage my lats when I'm doing them. So that enables me to take some of the pressure off of my shoulders so that I can do push-ups. Now, you want to try to make your body be as flat as you can so that you can touch your chin and your chest at the same time. Don't hang your head, right? And just keep your body as stiff as possible. Flex your abs, flex your lower back, flex your butt, flex your quads, and that makes push-ups a whole lot easier, to the point where you can start lifting up, you can start jumping, right? And do your push-ups like that. Now, as you start to work up to different types of push-ups, what you can do is you can start to get creative. You know, move your hand out, one hand in, one hand out. Do the push-up this way, then walk here. You can do that.
Another, show them that?
What?
That's one of the ones we do in our warm-up. We can show them that if you like. I
can
show it.
Well, but also...
If it's getting too much, it's fine.
Yeah.
Figured.
We got some video push-ups, right? Another thing you can do... Another thing you can work up to is doing what we call Superman push-ups. So Superman push-ups are not easy. But what you can do is kind of work up to them. So your normal hand spot is right here. You can work to doing them here and just push up. A little more. Push up. A little more, push up, all the way up, push up.
Right, and involve a lot of core muscle.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird because when I used to go to a gym, I used to go to LA Fitness back when I lived in Orange County, and I'd see the same people out on the mats, their mat section. I would go to their stretch out after I was done lifting weights, and I'd be there like maybe 30 minutes and I'm stretching already by then. But I'd see people doing their core exercises like this, and they're like, they're shaking after about it. I just subconsciously count how long they're doing it. Usually 20, 30 seconds, people are already ready to collapse. Whereas I remember doing it, and I do it from the push-up position here, and I just hold it here. But what you can do is you can get creative with it, because I could be here for 5 minutes, and I'm not really feeling all that much. But, you know, you lift an arm, you can lift another arm, you can lift a leg, you can lift the other leg, you can lift one arm, one leg, you can do the other side, and then just what you can do is that kind of keeps your body engaged, because you have to keep it engaged in order to keep the position. And just count. So you can do it 5 seconds. 5 seconds, right? Do the legs, and then just keep going until you can go to 10 seconds, right? And when you do it in that way, you'll get stronger every time. This whole time that you're having to be sequestered at home, work out every day. Nick gave you a lot of exercises. So pick 3 or 4 and just do those. Do maybe sets of 10 and just do exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, go back to 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, go back to 1. Do just those 4 exercises until you can exercise no more. It could be 3 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. But the longer you can go, the better. But don't really overdo it. Next day, pick 4 more exercises. Do those 4 the same way. Now, as time goes on, let's say you're doing this for a week or 2 and you've actually gotten better, you can either add another exercise to the group, go 5, or you can go to maybe 40 reps, something like that, something crazy, and just cycle it. You can also, instead of doing 2 cycles, you can do 5 cycles. You can make it as easy or as hard as you want. But think about how hard you work out in class in Jiu-Jitsu and try to replicate that level of intensity at home. What's the best time to exercise? The easiest time is right before you jump in the shower. So for those of you who don't exercise a lot, just go ahead and go into your closet maybe. Just I got carpet in mine. I just a little tight little closet and just do your exercise in there. By the time you're done, jump in the shower and you're ready for. You're probably not ready for bed after you exercise.
Hey, you can be sitting there like you're getting ready to go into your shower and then maybe you go to sleep afterwards after crashing. What I've done in the past is I'll put TV on. Maybe I'm using a roller for back muscle issues, tension, whatever. You could sit there and start to do exercises. You could do sit-ups there, crunches, whatever floats your boat. Some of the exercises we showed, and then you're watching your TV. You're kind of vegging out, doing your stuff. You get your respiration up. You're breaking a sweat a little bit. You've done good 10, 15, whatever minutes worth of exercises, whatever you can to your capabilities, and then just hop in the shower, kind of sit down and relax for a little bit, maybe stretch out since you're warmed up from the shower, from the exercise, and then crash, go to sleep afterwards. Whatever your normal routine is, try to keep it as close to what you've been doing before. As you start to interrupt it, and that's going to be harder as you come back into things like, I put on 20 pounds during the confinement, or oh god, I didn't know what to do, so I watched TV the whole time, and now I got to get back into training or gym or whatever, and now you've lost all this capability that you could have at least kept up. Nobody's saying you're going to be doing marathon runs during this time frame, but at least keep up some activity. Try to do something while you're watching TV. A couple things, so you don't feel like I gotta waste all this time, I can't watch my TV. Try to do it together. Keep it going. Herschel
Walker used to do his push-ups in between during commercial breaks, and he'd do how many push-ups a day? I think he did like 3,000 push-ups a day. It was something crazy. But he would have his
It's a lot
daughter.
of commercials.
He would have his daughter sit on his back while he did them, and he'd do them just constantly during the commercials. So that's making good use of your time. Make a little game of it. If you have young children.
Well, people are doing push-up challenges now and challenging each other on social media. So hey, here's a good opportunity to show everybody how much better you can do. Push them to go further.
Yeah.
Kroll, I think somebody challenged Kroll and Gracie, and and what did he say? He says, "You know what? Stop challenging me, because I wasn't challenging you when I was doing 200 push-ups a night, and I forget how many other exercises I do," or whatever he said. So try to push each other, but if you want to make a game of it, that's great. But do something. Don't sit there and just stare at the TV the whole time.
Exactly right. All right, guys. I hope that helps give you at least a little bit of a start. If after watching these videos we're still in this situation.
Hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too. Then go ahead and comment below, and we'll go over some new ones. Or maybe if you have some
Suggestions.
yeah, suggestions, we're always good for them. I mean, there's more. I mean, this is not all we do. But if you have some suggestions, go ahead and add it. If you've got a video you want to upload of you doing any kind of exercise, then go ahead and do a quick upload to YouTube and send us a link, and then we'll get Rusty to put something together. All right, you got anything else?
Especially if you're like a personal trainer or a certified trainer, and maybe you saw something we were doing that was not the best technique. If you have critiques or ways to improve it, help us out, because we're helping our students out by doing it.
Yeah.
So
And then we'll have Zach tell you that you're wrong.
All righty, guys. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Happy training. Bye now.
Bye.